All right, so we're still working with substitution. This is a method for solving a system of equations. So now we're going to look at number 5, and we have equation 1 and equation 2. All right, in the previous video, all of the equations that we had looked at had least one variable solved for the other one. You see here that neither variable is by itself. So before we can substitute for something, we have to solve for one of the equations. All right, so since each of these have a coefficient in front of it, I'm going to choose to solve the first equation for y. I can do that very simply by subtracting 2x to the other side. So I'm going to rewrite this as y equals minus 2x minus 2. All right, so again, I just used the substitution property to subtract 2x from both sides of my equation. All right, now once I do that, y is now equal to negative 2x minus 2. So I can take and substitute this in place of y in my second equation. So it's just like what we were doing before, it's just you have an extra step to get started. All right, so for now we're going to take the second equation, 5x plus 3, in place of y, we're going to substitute this so that we only have one variable. So negative 2x minus 2. And again, we always put this in parentheses so we don't forget to distribute. All right, so I've got 5x plus 3 times y equals negative 8. And then we substituted this in place of y. All right, now we can solve because we only have one variable. So solving a simple equation, bring down the 5x, distribute the 3. So I'm going to have negative 6x. And then 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. All right, these are on the same side, so I can combine like terms and get negative x. I'm going to add 6. And then, let's see if I can. I'm just going to bring this up here. So I've got negative x. And my 6 is canceled, and my negative x is going to equal negative 8 plus 6, or negative 2. Divide by negative 1. X is equal to negative 2 divided by negative 1, or plus 2. All right, so that is the first equation, or the first variable solved for. So now I'm going to take this x and substitute it back in for one of these. So I can substitute it into my original equation or the equivalent equation. Doesn't hurt to substitute it into the original equation because you know it's correct because it hasn't been changed. So let's take 2 times x plus y, and that should equal negative 2. All right, so when I do that, I'm going to substitute my 2 in here. That gives me 4 plus y equals negative 2, and then subtract 4 from both sides. So y is going to be negative 6. All right, once I have both my x and my y, that's my ordered pair, x, comma, y. And then I need to plug it in and check it. All right, I'm going to leave the checking to you so that we can get a couple more examples done. All right, number 6, I've got 2 equations. I've got a system of equations because I have 2 equations, and I'm going to solve using substitution. I can see that 3 of these have coefficients again, and the second equation can be rewritten easily by solving for y because y is by itself. So let's subtract the 2x over. So y equals negative 2x. Plus 9. All right, and once I do that, I know that my y value is now equal to this. Since I simplified my second equation or rewrote it in slope-intercept form, then I can take this expression and substitute it into the first equation. You always have to substitute it into the opposite equation of what you are working with. All right, so my first equation says 2 times x sorry about that, getting ahead of myself, 2x minus 3 times y. Here, this is y, so this is what I'm going to substitute for as my y value. So 2x minus 3y equals negative 11. All right, in place of y, I'm going to plug in the negative 2x plus 9. Be careful not to lose your negative. Signs are where a lot of people mess up. All right, so we're bringing down the 2x. Negative 3 and negative 2 give me positive 6x. And negative 3 and positive 9 gives me negative 27. All right, my 2 and my 6 are on the same side, so I'm going to combine like terms and get 8x. And then I'm going to bring that up here so it's easier to read. 8x minus 27 equals negative 11. We're going to add 27 to both sides because we're trying to solve for x. Negative 11 plus 27 is 16. And divide by 8. So x equals 2. So that's our first variable. Now we need to find y. Okay, so let's look at either equation, doesn't matter. I'm going to look at the second one because it just looks a little better. So I'm going to have 2x plus y equals 9. And we're going to substitute the 2 that we found for x in here. So 4 plus y equals 9. Subtract 4. Y equals 5. So our ordered pair, 2, 5, is our solution. And again, just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to let you guys check this. I've already checked them. All right, moving on to number 7. Again, I'm looking for the coefficient that is by itself if there is one. And in this case, it's x in the first equation. So I'm going to rewrite that and subtract y from both sides. So x equals negative 5y plus 4. All right, so again, all I did was take the first equation and subtract 5y from both sides to get x by itself. When I do that, then I can substitute this expression in for x in my second equation. All right, so I'm going to have 3 times x plus 15y equals negative 1. Now, in place of x, I said this right here was equal to x, so I'm going to plug in negative 5y plus 4. All right, again, I'm going to distribute, so I've got negative 15y, and I've got 3 times 4, which is 12. And then plus 15y equals negative 1. All right, the negative 15y and the positive 15y are on the same side. So those cancel. Combine like terms, negative 15 plus 15, they drop. So then I have 12 equals negative 1. So we know that 12 does not equal negative 1. That's not true. That's never going to be true. So that means there is no solution. That means that these lines are parallel, and if you were to graph them, they would have the same slope. No solution, and you may see that as the null set as well. All right, so just remember if you are solving one of these and you get a statement that is not true, that cannot be true, then it's going to be no solution. If you want to check yourself, you can go back to the 2 equations and find the slope of each equation and then make sure those slopes are equal, because equal slopes are parallel. And that means these two equations have no points in common. All right, looking at number 8, I've got my first equation and my second equation. Again, my x on the first equation is by itself. So I'm going to choose that equation to solve for x. So I'm going to have x equals, I'm going to subtract 4y to the other side. Now I can put plus or minus 0, but it's not going to change anything, so I don't have to put that there. All right, so now I'm going to take that and I'm going to substitute this in place of x in my second equation. All right, so I'm going to have 3 times x plus 2y equals 20. So I'm going to plug in negative, don't forget my negative, negative 4y. And then that becomes negative 12y plus 2y equals 20. So I've got negative 12 plus 2, that's negative 10. And then if I have negative 10y equals 20, divide both sides by negative 10, y equals negative 2. I found my y, now I need to find my x. So I'm going to say x equals negative 4y, or x equals negative 4 times negative 2, or negative 8. All right, so I always do x and y. So my x is negative 8, and my y is negative 2. All right, again, make sure you plug it in and check it. I have checked these already, so I'm going to just save time and move on to the next one. All right. Number 9. Number 9, the second equation has y with a 1 coefficient. So this one would be the easiest one to solve for. So I'm going to say y equals, let's subtract 2x from the other side, and then I still have plus 18 here. All right, so once I solve for y, I'm going to take this expression and substitute it for y in my first equation. Again, remember, whichever one you start with, you're going to substitute into the other equation. So I'm going to have 6x plus 3y is equal to 54. In place of y, I'm going to substitute negative 2x plus 18. All right, so I'm going to bring down my 6x, and I'm going to distribute. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6x, and 3 times 18 is 54. So I have 6x minus 6x, those cancel, and I have 54 equals 54. Okay, so this time we have a true statement. This is a true statement. It's always true. 54 will always equal 54, which means we're going to have infinitely many solutions. So this time we're going to have all real numbers, or you can write that as the infinity symbol. Infinity symbol is kind of like a sideways 8. All right, so that's all you need to know for substitution.